Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I am really excited to talk to you about my story today. I'm going to open up about it because I think it's about damn time. um, this is a very long story. It spans 7 years. So we're we're just going to start because why the fuck not? I'm going to apologize for my shoddy lighting if you're watching this on YouTube. I am going to be incorporating more of YouTube into my podcast and into my content, and I I think it's just because I feel so natural when I'm speaking, and obviously podcasting is great for speaking, but YouTube has a searchability component that podcasting does not have. So I'm going to take advantage of that and I'm going to put it up on YouTube. So let's start with the story. So where does this all begin? Well, it actually starts with 2017, and I have wanted to do this since 2017. What is this? I have wanted to come online and learn how to make money online and actually end up making money online since 2017. And in the beginning, it was a very self fulfilling, like I wanted to do it for myself to make money. And it didn't really hit me until probably 2 or 3 years ago why I'm actually doing this because my family, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I'm very blessed in that I watch my father and his brothers and my grandfather scale a business from like nothing to like this empire, this recycling empire that people call them because they know who they are and they know what industry power they have. And I am very fortunate to have that as part of my lineage, as part of my story. But I realized recently that I'm doing this for others because I know what it takes to build a business. I know what having a business entails. I know how to do business. I've learned it my whole life, whether that's what I tell people that are eight-figure entrepreneurs or not. I don't necessarily need the coach to have me like to have teached me to have taught me how to do business, right? Like I actually know how to do business. I'm taking accounting courses. I'm applying myself. I've spent time working for my father. I've spent time in his business. I've gotten to know people. I've learned how to make connections, and I've learned what it takes to actually build a business plan and go through the numbers and have a QuickBooks and stay compliant. And I am doing this because there is so much conning and cheating and shitty maneuvers and tactics in this industry. And it breaks my heart that there are good intentioned people and they're being completely taken advantage of. And that's why I am doing this. That is my purpose because there is a way to build a business that is not cheating or conning or getting like second hand poop, for lack of a better term, from anybody else. So I'm going to go from the beginning. I got pretty fired up there, but I'm going to start from the beginning. In 2017, it was pretty like selfish. I wanted to learn how to make money online, and I was very inspired at the time by the travel YouTubers, and I wanted to have a travel YouTube because I love traveling. I love traveling so much. Even to this day, I love traveling. It's part of my personality, it's part of who I am. And so I was in 2017, I was living in Denver, Colorado at the time, and I was working for an insurance company in downtown Denver. Literally, you walk out of Union Station, you hang a left, and that was the building that I worked out of. And I felt like I was in a cage all day long. I felt like I was in a cage. And that's not to say that I was actually in a cage. Actually, that employer was very lenient. They had what's the term? They had it's, like, unlimited PTO, that's what it is, and I like, there was never anybody saying, "You have to work," like, there was never any of that, but I felt the pressure to have to work, and I didn't really align with that, that really wasn't something that I ever really wanted for myself, and I just felt like I was stagnant, I wasn't going anyplace, I wasn't growing, I wasn't moving, I wasn't experiencing or learning new things. And So I wound up doing a lot of travel in my time there because I did have unlimited PTO and I didn't abuse it. Don't get me wrong. I did, however, go to Oktoberfest that year and I did go on this grand European adventure. And I remember I was on the plane back into Denver and I was like, I can't keep living this, like this corporate American, like full of pressure. It was making me miserable. And it wasn't even like it was that bad. Like it was bad because it was like monotonous and it was pressured. Like it was a very pressureful situation. But not once did I go through any really shitty experience that I'm like, "This employer sucks, like, this is toxic." That employer was not toxic. I have worked for toxic employers in the past. The whole reason why I ended up in Colorado was because of a toxic employer. I used to work for a pharmaceutical advertising agency in 2016. But I left that pharmaceutical advertising agency and I wound up packing up my Honda Civic, driving out to Colorado. And then while I was out there, I was like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I started showing up on video and I was terrified. I was so like not confident in myself. I didn't know how to show up on video. And those videos still exist to this day on my podcast, and you can go check them out. I'll put the links down below. They're horrible. They're absolutely cringe. But it taught me a lesson. Like, it taught me to start. It taught me to start. And while I was out in Colorado, I started. And did I continue? No. But what wound up happening was I continued down the journey and I kind of experienced shiny object syndrome where, you're bouncing around between a lot of different things before you find the thing that you're actually like what your purpose actually is. And so I went from having this YouTube dream to, oh, well, I'm going to build a blog. And I created this blog and I called it The Abstract Adventurer. I remember I was having a conversation with one of the guys I went to college with, and he was really into me at the time. And he and I were texting and he was saying, "Well, what you're looking for is so abstract." And I was like, "I'm going to call myself that. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be the abstract adventurer because I love traveling and he thinks that I'm abstract." Smash them together. Call it a blog, right? I did that. I posted to the blog. I wound up moving from Denver to Prague in the Czech Republic, and I was working as an English teacher in the Czech Republic, and I was posting to my blog and I was getting no traffic, like nothing. Granted, like I was posting on my Instagram, I got 200 followers from a post at one point, but like I never had that true Instagram growth and I never had really quite the traffic that I was looking for to be able to monetize my blog. So it really didn't go anywhere. And so at the end of 2018, after my stint of teaching English in the Czech Republic, I came back home to the States. I actually had a anxiety attack while I was visiting Copenhagen, and I was like, that's it. I can't stay here anymore. I didn't have any family. The friends that I did have were coming back to the States, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't live abroad. There was a lot of other things going on. I was traveling to Ireland, I was traveling to Italy, and I was by myself a lot. I was very, very alone. And it was more 2018 was more of a time of like finding myself. And so at the end of 2018, I came back home and I joined a local rowing club because I vividly remember sitting at my mother's kitchen table, looking out the window and staring at the pine tree across the way there. And I was what do I love? Like, what brings me love? And the first thing that I thought of was rowing. I was a rower in college and I truly love the sport. I really do. I love being out on the water. It's so serene. It's like my zen time. And so in 2018, after that moment where I was sitting at my mom's kitchen table, I went back into rowing. I joined the local rowing team. It was a different club than the club I had rowed for in college. And I was like, you know what? Let's just see where this goes. I do want to get into coaching. This will be a great opportunity for me to get into coaching, but I don't know how it's going to pan out. At the end of the year, turned out there was a coaching position at a high school that opened up, and I was like, I want to take it. I got my personal training certification. I was working a corporate HR job. at the time because I had no more money. So I was working in HR and I was living in Harrison, New Jersey. And I took this HR job and I was like talking to the people who rode out of the club and they were like, yeah, this position's open. This person's leaving. Do you want to take it? I was like, yeah, I want to take it. I want to get into coaching. I took that coaching position and what wound up happening was for the year of 2019, I coached at that high school. Additionally, in 2019, I wound up getting another position for that club that I rode for. I wound up becoming the club administrator, which was very fortuitous. It was very good because it wound up teaching me a lot of the things that I would need to be able to do and learn how to do for when I go to build an online business. I had been posting to social media very frequently. I was updating the website. I was increasing, my focus was to increase the membership, set the budgets, um, record the minutes, record the meeting minutes, get the taxes and everything filed with the right people, whether it was the accountant or like filing it even for NJ Charities authorities so that we can get granted grants for, we were looking to build a boathouse. So I learned a lot of the stepping stones for me to be able to take into the online business arena. And obviously, like I had my personal training certification. So I felt like it all kind of fit together. I was like, oh, this is going in a great direction, right? I wound up leaving my corporate HR job, and it was strictly because I was so miserable. Oh my God, I was so miserable. Like, I thought I was miserable in Denver. No, miserable working in Jersey City. That was horrible. I would wake up, I would be on the train to get to work at like 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning for me to get there on time, for me to be able to work from like 8 to 5. And it would be like I didn't see any sun during my day. It was like dark when I got there and dark when I left the office. That was true misery for me. And so once I got that club administrator position, I wound up leaving that HR job and I was like, I'm going to just go into personal training. And so I went into personal training. It was hard. I wound up actually picking up other side jobs. I was a bartender. Um, I was the club administrator. I was the coach. I had like at one point I had 5 different jobs so that I could pay the money for rent. I had recently also moved from Harrison to Clifton, and then that's the cat. She's digging in her cat box. And then I wound up meeting Tommy around the same time, and we moved in together not that short after. I moved from Clifton to Nutley. And so through this club administrator position, now I was scheduling races. I was, working behind the scenes to schedule the races and run the races and like get us all on this same schedule for the 20th anniversary and whatever, like all of these different events, right? I was now getting into the events. And so we hosted a 20th anniversary dinner and we had people coming from all over the states to be able to come to this dinner. And it was such a fun time. And then there was, a little bit of a rift between the president of the club at the time and myself because of how things were being run. But the president really wasn't a part of any of these decisions. He literally said, "You take care of it. Like I don't want anything to do with it. You take care of it." And then it wound up coming to bite me in the butt at the end of the day because he was like, "Well, I'm not involved in any of this." So like, well, you told me you didn't want to be. That aside, I learned a lot of valuable lessons from that club administrator position, and it wound up taking me into the pandemic. January of 2020, I actually decided to invest in my first online business coach ever. She was great. I have nothing but good things to say about her. She absolutely helped me see a return from the investment that I made in her. And I did actually make my investment back plus. However, because of the pandemic, I didn't make all of that money back at the same time. So I launched my first group program after I was working with her for 3 months, and I had 5 people sign up. It was a virtual rowing academy, and basically it was like a workout program. So I had 5 people sign up. We were doing workouts, and we had to do it indoors because obviously no gyms were open because of the pandemic. After I had that experience with her, I was like, I really don't want to be doing personal training anymore. I really don't want to be doing fitness. Like, I really I desire to work in business. Like really have always had a desire to work in business, and I've always wanted to have an understanding of how business works and marketing and advertising and finance and all of the things. And so I actually decided to invest in a different coach. And that coach was the start of something bad. That second coach who I invested in, I spent a very sizable amount of money. It was 2 times the investment of the first coach who I ever paid. So the first coach, I'm just going to give you the numbers. The first coach that I had in the beginning of 2020 was $2,000. I made $2,500 after launching my group program and working with her. The second coach that I was going to work with, that I did end up working with, her program cost $4,000 and I did not make a penny back. And of course, at the end of the day, she's like, well, it's on you. You didn't launch the thing. You didn't do it. Like basically, like there is a point in this online coaching space where a lot of things get put onto you, and that I am absolutely okay with taking accountability for my actions and my results. But I was literally following the exact strategies. I was posting, I was talking to people, I was networking. I even reached out to one of the guests that she had on her podcast at one point, and I didn't get anywhere in terms of making an investment back. And I know that it wasn't just me, because when I worked with that first coach, I did make an investment back. So I know that I was doing my due diligence. I know I was taking action. I know I was doing the thing. And for me not to see a return, I was pretty pissed because I just spent a lot of money. And so she was talking and marketing for her coaches at the time. I was like, well, maybe if I go to the source, then I will be able to get the best information possible to help me go where I want to go. And so I joined that mastermind that her coaches were running. And I wound up connecting with that very same podcast guest she had on an even deeper level. And that podcast guest was a sales coach, and she was part of the mastermind that I just decided to join. And she was a sales coach. And so obviously, what is she really good at? She's good at making sales. And so I was on her radar to make a sale. And so we wound up having a Zoom one day, and she pitched me her program. I was like, well, I'm not making sales anyways, so why not? I joined her sales program at the same time I joined that mastermind. So I went from paying $4,000 to not making any money back in that second program to now paying $5,000 for that mastermind and paying an additional $28.88 for this sales coach. So I went from, like, I literally doubled my investment every time. And this, like, keep in mind, at the time the mantra was, well, because I'm investing in coaching, if you want to get where you want to go, you should be investing in coaching, which is a horrible mantra to live by, a horrible mantra to invest by, and a horrible mantra to run your business by. Okay. So in 2020, I spent 2,000, 4,000, that's 6,000 plus 500, 11,000 plus 28.88, which is $13,888. Okay. I wound up launching a program on the recommendation of this sales coach to go in the direction of organization, because I had a very organized notebooks. I was really good at taking notes. I was like, how can I possibly monetize that though? Like, why would entrepreneurs ever want to learn how to take notes when they could just pay someone to take notes? That was my thinking. She's like, no, 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 no. They really need to learn this skill. It's a skill that if they're not at six figures to be able to hire somebody out to do that, they're going to need this skill. And I was like, okay, that's a good point. So I created this organization program, and it was so that people could learn how to take better notes. And I had one person join, and it was my coach, my sales coach. And that was like another flag for me, right? Where I'm like, what, like, where is this going? Like, what am I even doing? How am I going to possibly make this a business? And she was like, you got to stay in notes. You got to stay in notes. And she was like pushing me in this one solid singular direction. I was like, okay, but this isn't working. Like, this isn't working. And of course, my first launch, I'm like always comparing everything to my first launch because I had 5 people sign up. Like, I made my investment back. So at the end of the year of 2020, I decided to invest in another 2 things. It was one-on-one self-discovery coaching. So it's $3,000. So that 1388 went to 1688. And then I also decided to invest in the sales mastermind that my sales coach had pitched to me at the end of the year. So that 1688 went to 2188 because that sales mastermind was $5,000. I was going into 2021 with $21,000 of credit card debt. $21,888 of credit card debt. And I really didn't pay any of it off because that was the year of the pandemic. There was really no opportunity for jobs. There was minimal relief. Things were hard. That year was really financially very, very hard. And so I had this one-on-one coaching, the self-discovery coaching, and I started the mastermind. But I was like, I'm going to create a notebook. I'm going to create a product, okay, if I'm going to continue going in this direction. So I created a product and I wound up selling out that product. So I sold it out 4 different launches. I sold out that product. So I went from like online group coaching to e-commerce. It was a very fast switch in directions there, but e-commerce was working for me. It was helping me get where I wanted to go. And then after I sold out 4 different launches, I wound up going on Clubhouse in January and I wound up pitching an 8-figure entrepreneur and I wound up getting his business. He didn't want the notebook, he wanted the creator of the notebook. I'm just going to put that out there because I already said that at the beginning of going into notes, right? So he hired me. And then I wound up making a lot of other pretty ballsy moves, if I do say so myself. I pitched a lot of other 7 and 8-figure entrepreneurs. One of them was around my product to get them into their gift for one of their masterminds, one of their gift bags for their masterminds. And then the other was to start her office supplies line. And so like I had a lot of experiences and pitches and I was like, wow, I'm moving in this really big direction. And in 2021, I wound up having a lot of momentum. And through that, though, I wound up going viral on TikTok for for 2 notebooks that I had sold completely randomly I based it off of the manifestation code that I used that I learned from my friend. And I wound up going viral for the manifestation code. A lot of people were asking me, how do I use this code? And I just created a digital product because I was like, I keep getting this question and here's how I use it. So I put it out there. I said, this is $5. If you use discount code TikTok50, you can get 50% off. And so I sold $3,000 worth of this $2 product. I had over 1,500 sales. That's insane. Of a $2 digital download, okay? That was nuts to me. And I was like, damn, like if I could do that, then I could do something more. And I wound up getting a lot of people in my community from that online group coaching, that sales coach and her community. A lot of people were asking me, how did you go viral on TikTok? And how did you do this? And how did you do that? How did you make all these sales? Blah, blah, blah. So I created this group program and it was called the Code Collective. And I had said to myself, I want 10 people to sign up. I'm only going to take 10 people. There were 12. And I wound up taking all 12, which I learned you know, today to start a wait list and to grow the wait list because by taking all 12, I hedged my bets when I went to go launch it again. And so I took all 12. I ran this group coaching program. It was 8 weeks. It was $200 for 8 weeks. Okay. I will never run a group coaching program for $200 for 8 weeks ever again. It was way too much time and way too much support and not enough return for the amount of time that I was putting out and the amount of effort that I was putting out for that program, especially because I didn't have a 9 to 5 at the time. in addition to that. That was my sole source of income. And so even though I made $3,000, I had to split it between 2 months, and basically that covered my rent. That was it. $1,500 in May, $1,500 in June. That was it. Um, Now from there, I wound up going on a retreat to Sedona with my sales coach, and then she offered me a co-coaching position in her next round of the mastermind, and I was like, "Hell yeah, let's fucking go." It was like I was, like, on top of the world. I felt like 2021 was my year, and I will admit that things started to get a little shaky in July of 2021. I really didn't want to I didn't really want to continue in that direction. I wanted to kinda, like, slow down a little bit. I had this craving to do more things in person. And in August of 2021, I wound up launching a video marketing course that I called The Real Deal. And I think it was 11 people sign up. It was $100 though, so it was $1,100. It was a week-long workshop course. And I had 11 people sign up, but only like 4, I think, showed up to the calls. And it was like a good momentum mover for some people, but then other people just didn't show up. And, it really does come down sometimes to like what you put in. You get what you put in, or you get out what you put in, whatever the phrase is. It doesn't really matter. But after that course, I was pretty down on myself. I'm not gonna lie. I was like pretty upset with how things were going. And I was really still craving that in-person component. And I was also really craving to be closer to my partner Tommy. And after Sedona, he and I were talking about the direction that we wanted things to go. And he was like, I want to go in this in-person direction for the business. And I was like, well, what does that include? And he was like, well, we have to get insurance and we have to do this thing. And so we actually met with an insurance broker, and we wound up getting general liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, and we got one other policy. I forget what it was. It was not an auto policy, but or maybe it was a commercial. It was like it wasn't the commercial auto policy, but it was like the auto policy for the business that would cover the commercial activities, but it was for the personal car. I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm not an insurance agent. Don't take my word for it. We wound up getting this insurance. He wound up taking this opportunity. And I was pretty upset with how things were going online. I wasn't really seeing a lot of success the way that I had seen earlier on in the year and at the end of 2020. So I was like, I'm going to take a huge step back. And I wound up taking a big step back. And um, I also started to break off from that sales coach. Excuse me. In October of 2021, I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter Penelope, and that sales coach and I wound up having a really big falling out with each other. So I was like, I really don't want to go back online now. Like I really didn't want to go back online. And I took a very long hiatus from any kind of coaching, any kind of investing. And in 2022, I wound up having one client still carry over, and I pitched them on this idea that I had called the apprenticeship. And I really loved that idea because it was like, well, I would take you on as my apprentice, and as I grow, you grow. It's kind of like a Obi-Wan, Luke Skywalker kind of thing. And she was like, I want to do it, but I have all of these money things popping up. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. And if all of this stuff is popping up for you, maybe that's not the best decision. And it kind of dissolved from there. It didn't really go anyplace. And I was like, I have to try and do something online. Like, I can't go into having a kid and not having my shit together, not having a job, like, not having a way for me to bring in money. Granted, Tommy and I had brought in $10,000 in October and another $10,000 month in November of 2021, but December and January were slim pickings because of the holidays. It was $8,000 in December, $6,000 in January, and it didn't get any higher from there until March of 2022. So we were having a really hard time, and come May, we wound up moving in with my mom, May of 2022. June 2022 was hard because it was kinda like May to July of 2022 were really hard because I was also between 7 and 9 months pregnant, and I couldn't really do a whole lot, like, and nobody was ever gonna hire somebody at 7 months pregnant, like, I'm gonna be out the door for maternity leave in, like, 2 months. So, 2022 was really difficult in that regard because I didn't have the support or the vision that I thought I was gonna have. I did start investing again in March of 2022, and I invested for probably, like, 2 or 3 months, and I was like, "No, I can't do this with a daughter on the way." I had invested in another program. It was way less money, though, in May of 2022, and that actually carried me through to the end of the year. But in the end of 2022, I was like, "I have to get something together. Um, I have to try and turn this around," and so I wound up going back into crew coaching, and it wasn't, like, glamorous, but it was a start. Then there was another position that opened up, and it was because somebody was retiring, and so I wound up training with them before they retired, and then in 2023, they had been fully retired, and I took over that job completely. So I went back into investing again, and, like, keep in mind, like, I've had all these terrible experiences, like, I had this one coach in the March to May 2022 timeframe there that I had this coach. I spent, like, $7,500, and then I was like, "No, I can't do this with a daughter on the way," and they're like, "Well, we're gonna charge you a termination fee." That's kind of rude. Um, and then on top of that, I had, that 2020 experience with that one coach who had a six-figure launch as soon like, immediately when she pivoted from nutrition coaching into business coaching. Her first ever launch was 6 figures, okay? Like, there's like, I get that marketing is important, but, like, that that is something else, okay? And then I had this really bad experience. I had this falling out with this sales coach, like, all of these people, they were like, "Oh, yeah, like, I've made 6 figures in 6 months, and here's how I did it, and here's how you do it, and I have all of this experience, and da da da," and, like, it was, like, red flag after red flag, and I was like, "None of this is actually helping people build a business. Like, why am I having such a hard time?" So I decided to go in this direction of like kind of going deeper into myself. Like, is it about me? What am I doing wrong? Who am I? Learning more about myself, learning more about my identity. And um, in 2023, I had hired another business coach. It was one on one, and she was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. She took the time to actually come out where I am in New Jersey, and we had coffee, and she's great. She was a great coach. She even offered an extended time period to work together, and she didn't have to do that. And that was really incredible of her. She really is one of the best coaches that I have ever worked with. But I didn't I didn't see the result because I was still stuck in the, "Well, I have to do crew coaching, and I have to make money, and I have to do this, and, like, how else am I gonna afford that?" And, like, I was not at the right mindset at the time, and I was like after she and I had finished working together, I was like, "I just wanna pay off my debt. Like, I really just wanna talk about my debt. I wanna pay off my debt. I wanna be done with this debt." I wound up hiring another coach for a couple months. She had me on her podcast. I didn't like the way that the podcast went because of, like, personal reasons, and I chose to leave her coaching container. Nothing to do with her. She was actually really great as well. She was a really great coach. She knew what she was talking about. She had a lot of experience. She, wasn't one of those people who was like, "I made 6 figures in 6 months, and this is how I did this, and blah, 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 blah." Like, she wasn't full of shit. She had retail experience. Like, she had actual real life experience. It's just, again, it was more on me. 2023 was the year of, like, me realizing myself, learning about my habits, paying off my debts, and, like, getting my shit together. By the end of 2023, I had paid off over $25,000 of debt, and I was like, "Okay." Penelope had a seizure in October. I spent November doing the strategy of everything. December, I restarted my social accounts, and I was gonna build from the scratch because there was no way for me to viably, or rather, to comprehensively in my head build out my brand and my business with all of these different things going on. One of the one of the mantras that my sales coach from 2021 had instilled in me was that I can't talk about anything other than one thing. I have to have top of mind awareness for one category, for one thing. And I just would run myself in circles talking about one thing. And I would always talk about educational content, and because that's what people wanted, and this is what people are going to convert with, and da da da. People aren't going to convert with that now. It's 2024. People have had that for 3 fucking years. They're so sick of it. Run a business the way that you're gonna run a business. Build out your brand, share your stories, talk about these things, involve people on a different level, get together in person. You know, don't just go from the educational component of it, because going from the educational component of it is not gonna get you where you wanna go. Trust me, I've been doing it for, like, 4 friggin' years, okay? I don't know that I'm allowed to say any of these words on YouTube. We'll see. We'll find out. But I paid off over $25,000 debt in December of 2023. I decided, all right, I just went to this live in-person event. I am totally in, especially that Penelope had her seizure in October. I have to make this work next year. I have to make it work for me. Not because It's not because of me anymore. It's because of Penelope. It's because of what this life can offer me. It's because I care about people. I care about them learning the actual foundations of business. I care about them getting the right information. I care about them learning what I have been spending time learning. I had just taken my very first accounting class, and it blew my mind open to the possibilities and the actual understanding of money. It's not just the bullshit money mindset stuff. When you understand money, it will be so much easier for you to actually see the results you want with money. But you have to learn about money. You have to learn about how money works. You have to learn about how money flows. You have to learn about how to, work with money. It's just like any other relationship that you have. But I have been acquiring all of this knowledge over the course of these 4 years, and I have been very fortunate enough to be able to also practice business at the same time. And so I joined this other program at the end of December 2023, and I actually wound up getting kicked out of that program earlier this month. It's March 17th at time of recording, 2024. March 4th or 5th, I posted a thread basically after I had a session with this person who ran this program. And she was like, "You have to share more of you. You are what makes you unique. You are what makes your business unique." And I was like, "Okay." And I decided that Monday to start opening up about my story. And I got kicked out of her program. I was like, I have been dealing with shitty coaches for the last 4 years, and you took it as a personal attack, and you kicked me out of your program. And don't get me wrong, there are things that she did that were actually really nice of her, and she did not have to do. I will absolutely give her credit where credit is due, but this goes to show that entrepreneurship is not just a financial journey. It's not just a, like, communication and relationship journey. It's also very much so a personal development journey, and like how you take things on your internal self and your internal side. And I was like, I was I was surprised. I was like, I was literally I was literally talking about all of these other experiences that I've had since 2020. Like, I have been in this space for a very long time, and for you to think that I'm talking about you, I didn't wanna say anything back. I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna shut my mouth. Just gonna do it." And so I stayed quiet, and I've kind of been refining my strategy since then. I've been working with some people about how to really build out my business. This is the cat. That's the cat, the one that was digging in her cat box before. I've been working out on how to build out my business and what does that include and what does that entail? And I see now how important my stories are. And I see now how relevant and how relatable they all can be. So this is me, March 17th, 2024. And I am literally just gonna share my stories. I'm gonna share everything that I've learned. I'm gonna share from 4 different topics, okay? Which in my brain, in my subconscious mind, it's like, "No, no, 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 you can only talk about marketing. No, 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 you can only talk about manifestation codes. No, 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 you could only talk about money." Like, I am literally my programming since working with that sales coach back in 2020 and 2021 is literally in my head. It's like, you are not going to see success unless you talk about just one thing. That's the programming that's in my head right now. And that's not true. And this is me rewriting my story. This is me rewriting my business. This is me unwinding all of that institution, all of those beliefs that were instituted in me in 2020 and 2021 and going out there and building the business that I know I have in me for myself, for my daughter, and for other people who want the very same thing for themselves. So, I am going to be talking about money. I am going to be talking about marketing. I'm going to be talking about learn self-discovery, manifestation, and business. I'm going to be talking about all of it. And it's scary because my brain is like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. But I know because I'm taking my NLP certification right now, when my subconscious is going to have me go back into those old patterns, that is when I should be leaning into creating the new pattern because that's going to open up the doors of abundance for me. And it's also going to open up the doors of abundance for you. So this week, take that with you. What things, what patterns, what habits, what behaviors are on repeat for you? What do you find yourself falling back to very easily? And what are you going to create that's new? What are you going to what are you going to take a risk into moving forward? Because what seems like a risk for me, it's talking about multiple different things in my content. I think it's actually gonna lead to the reward because I've learned so much about messaging. I've learned so much about building out your product suite, so much about pricing, so much about business plans, accounting, taxes, finance that not a whole lot of people talk about in their business programs. A lot of these business programs online are strictly about social media marketing, and sales, and I wouldn't even really call that sales. Those are not foundational sales skills. However, there is somebody who does actually. I will attest to the fact that she does have the foundational sales skills because she did work in retail. She offers skills labs where you can practice your sales skills, you can practice your pitching. I will absolutely recommend her every single day because she is actually very good at sales. But a lot of a lot of that is missing online. A lot of this information is missing, and I have this information. I have this experience. I have these transformations for myself, and it's about damn time that I open up and I share it. And it's about damn time I start talking about it and I start sharing all these really important things because I know that they can help you. I know that they're going to help you build a business. I know that they're going to help you get to where you want to go financially, personally, and like with your family. Like just in a very roundabout sense. So, I am very worked up about it, obviously. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I'm gonna see you next week.